My mom, when she got out of residential school, she married this guy that worked for the Hudson Bay store. And he was a chronic alcoholic, and he didn't know how to be a father either. And so we were raised in an alcoholic home, a lot of violence and neglect, where none of us felt that we were loved or belonged.
Tribal trails,
Growing up in Moose Factory was a very difficult childhood that I had because my mother spent 11 years in residential school. And so even though she tried her best, she had difficulty being a mother, and because she never had a role model herself. We spent part of our life living with our granny. And it's funny, you know, our granny went to jail for standing in the doorway trying to fight back the Indian agent and the RCMP when they were taking the kids away to residential school. So she ended up going to jail for that. And my mom, when she got out of residential school, she married this guy that worked for the Hudson Bay store. And he was a chronic alcoholic, and he didn't know how to be a father either. And so we were raised in an alcoholic home, a lot of violence and neglect, where none of us felt that we were loved or belonged. I never wanted that. In fact, one thing that's etched in my memory is when I was about 8 years old, 7 years old, they were fighting, and I went running between them, and I yelled, "Stop fighting, stop fighting." And my father became upset at me and pushed me aside and threw me aside and said that, "Mind your own business. I never wanted you, you know, I wish you weren't born, and I always wanted to send you away to reform school or foster care or something like that." And I remember sitting on the floor there against the wall. There's a chair there. I remember crying, you know, and just being devastated. And so when I seen all these violence going on, argument and neglect, and I thought, I don't want to live like this. When I grow up, I want to have a good family. And so I kept on thinking that, you know, how can I make myself a good father? How can I? And so I think the Lord had His hand on me at an early age, and I always had that feeling in my heart that I wanted to be better, but I didn't know how. And I became a Christian as a teenager, and I could have followed in the footsteps of my father or my older siblings. And I'm the youngest of 8, and it's sad how my family turned out because of neglect, you know, residential school, survivor, mother, and the father who's the abusive alcoholic. And so he really wasn't the father figure. And so out of 8 children, the oldest was murdered in a knife fight. The second oldest died of diabetes, health-related issues. The third oldest died of addiction, Toxicantins. And the fourth child was murdered, and sadly to say, by another brother, because there was a big fight in the family. And then the fifth child, he died of cirrhosis of the liver. He drank himself to death. So there's 3 of us left.
I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and He turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the pit of despair, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on solid ground and steadied me as I walked along. He has given me a new song to sing, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see what He has done and be amazed. They will put their trust in the Lord.